Let's see how yesterday's deals, though, will impact the DFS side or Sportsbook going forward here, gentlemen. Starting with the biggest one. So James Harden to Philly. The Nets received Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and a bunch of picks we don't really care about right now. We'll start by analyzing the Philadelphia side of things. How does Harden, now in the 76ers, impact either DFS or the Sportsbook, Gare Bear?
Yeah, I think from a DFS perspective, this is a very unique trade in the sense that, generally speaking, when two superstars are traded for each other, I don't want to say you can just sort of plug in one for the other in terms of usage and shot volume and even minutes volume, but generally speaking, there's like an approximation where, all right, one guy is just replacing the other guy, it's roughly the same, everyone carry on. I mean, we're now adding James Harden to a 76ers team, or potentially adding. I think he's not going to play the next 2 games. So, cross your fingers that his hand and his hamstring get healthy. But you're adding James Harden to a team where Ben Simmons just straight up was not playing. And we had seen Joel Embiid sort of start looking, at least from a usage perspective, much more efficient than this person. But from a usage perspective, look like 2016 Russell Westbrook. His usage rate since the beginning of January was 43%. So obviously you're just going to see slight declines in some of these guys. I mean, Embiid, there's no way you can maintain a usage rate that high playing next to James Harden. Tyrese Maxey, even if he's still in the starting lineup, is going to have to take a back seat to both of these just like usage rate tent poles. So it's just going to be slightly negatively impacting every single 76er when Harden actually does end up playing. And, Harden himself, I think he's the one guy even playing next to Embiid, just from a narrative perspective. I mean, I guess there's the potential for some growth just because maybe he wasn't giving it his full level of effort in Brooklyn, at least the last couple of months. But that remains to be seen. But I think mostly it's Maxey and Embiid are just going to be negatively impacted here in at least the short term.
Yeah, Maddie, Harden's constantly being dissatisfied with his teammates and organizations here. So you have to wonder how long it's going to take until things go south in Philly. But as of right now, what's the impact here? DFS or Sportsbook? Where's the biggest impact?
I'm looking at Sportsbook, though. It's actually a lot of the same points that Garion made. So I guess firstly, the championship odds are really the main spot where Harden will have a positive impact, especially if he's missing regular season games. Like once we get into the playoffs, that's where we'll really see where Harden is a big difference maker for Philly. But the 2 spots where I actually don't think it makes as much of a difference in a positive direction are the division odds, where now we may have games where Harden doesn't play, but Seth Curry's gone. And I don't actually know that Philly's chances to win the division got that much better. They only moved from -150 to -200. So I'm kind of agnostic there. And then where I think it's a clear negative is in the MVP race, because Joel Embiid is the clear favorite right now. But a lot of it has been coming from what Garion just talked about, where his usage rate is crazy. The stats are well past his past career highs. And if Harden's on the court, we're going to see Embiid start to lose some of that statistical dominance that he's had throughout the year. So I actually think this hurts Embiid in the MVP race now that he has another stud out there with him. And we could see some guys who are further back. I'll give a tease for Luka Doncic, who I think we're going to get to. But I think that some other guys who are further back could start to catch Embiid because Harden's now there. It makes Embiid look a little bit worse.
All right, well, let's kind of go to that Sportsbook side here, because we're going to look now at the Brooklyn angle of this, Maddie. They get Ben Simmons and some other really nice pieces. So Nets were plus 300 before the trade to win it all, and now have gone to plus 370. Still the favorite, which is kind of crazy, right? I think they've only won 1 game in their past 10 or something insane like that. But what do you think the biggest impact of this trade will be for Brooklyn?
This one is really hard to analyze. And part of the problem is we don't know what would have happened to the Nets if they didn't make the deal. So we're not really comparing apples to apples with the new team versus the old team. We don't know how much Kyrie Irving is going to play still. We don't know how much Ben Simmons is going to play still, but we don't know how much James Harden was going to play before either. There was clearly some turmoil there with the hamstring, but also some issues with Kevin Durant, with Kyrie Irving. There's some locker room stuff that we're starting to hear a little bit about now, but there's no way we have the full story there. So I don't know what kind of shape the Nets were in before this. I think they had to make a deal, most likely, because there was just so much happening. But assuming they get all the guys that they have now on the court, I don't think the Nets actually got that much worse. Like, I think Ben Simmons and Seth Curry as a package are close enough to James Harden that it's not going to change the quality of the team and the chances of winning the championship by too much. And it actually might fit better together because Durant and Kyrie can do most of the scoring now. Simmons is a much better defender. So my overall outlook on the Nets is actually kind of similar to what it was before. I think other teams moved up and the Nets kind of just stayed the same.
Yeah, Garion, how are they still the favorites right now?
It's a really, really strange kind of situation because I would agree with what Matt was saying towards the end there, which is I actually really like this trade in a vacuum for the Nets. I think when you put together their like optimum 5-man lineup with Ben Simmons doing what, I mean, really he should have been doing his whole career if he had the chance. I mean, it's not like you often fall into a situation with 2 superstar scorers, but to be that third wheel, to be that guy who can really just focus on defense and rebounding and assists, I mean, that's kind of his ideal situation. I like what this team could be a lot. I think at full strength, the Nets probably should be the favorites to win the NBA Finals. However, the fact that they're the favorites now, you can't bet them. I mean, it's just not a situation that you can partake in right now. And I think the play is to just wait. Because right now we're in a spot where Kevin Durant does not have a timeline for his return. We don't know when Ben Simmons is going to even take the court, let alone be at full strength and get back into game conditioning. And the Nets' next 10 games are Miami, Sacramento, the Knicks, the Wizards, Boston, Milwaukee, Toronto, Boston. That's a really tough 10-game stretch. 5 of those games are at home, so Kyrie can't play in any of those 5. And one of the away games is in Toronto, and he can't play in that game either. So you could see a situation where the Nets have lost 10 games in a row. They could go into this next 10-game stretch where of their 3 superstars, only Kyrie will be able to suit up, and he'll only be able to suit up for 4 games. So I would maybe wait till like this stretch is over and they've gone, 2-8, and then kind of reassess what the odds are at that point.
That's what I'm saying. Like, is it even really a big 3 when you can't even play home games like at full strength? It doesn't seem like that.
This is unprecedented.
Yeah.
I think is the only way you can say it.
All right, guys, another trade news here. So here we go. We're going to get to the Mavericks, who send Kristaps Porzingis and a second-round pick to Washington for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans. So a fire sale, really, in our nation's capital. Where will we see the biggest impact from this trade, Garion?
I mean, Luka's just going to go supernova. I think that's kind of the big takeaway. We've seen what he's done the past couple seasons without Porzingis on the floor. You could say, well, hey, Spencer Dinwiddie's going to need the ball. He does need the ball. He's not going to get it. So I don't know what Spencer Dinwiddie's role on this team is. I don't know what this is all going to look like in terms of, are the Mavs a good team? What does this mean for their finals odds? But I just know Luka is going to be someone who just goes crazy every single night he's on the court. I think the sort of under the radar interesting, at least from a DFS perspective, is the Wizards. I mean, who is left on this team? Brad Beal out for the remainder of the season. I would not be shocked if Kristaps Porzingis did not play another game this year. I mean, I don't know what his intentions are, but if the Wizards do see him as a long-term piece, they might just say, hey, this season's already gone. Let's just get you healthy and make sure you're 100% going into 2022-23. So, yeah, you're kind of left in a situation where I guess Kyle Kuzma's just going to play point forward for this team every single night. So great for Kyle Kuzma. Maybe like Danny Advia is going to get the opportunity to show that he's not a bust as a lottery pick. Like Corey Kispert is going to get more of an opportunity. It's kind of sad what's going on in Washington right now. The fact that they acquired Ish Smith yesterday, and I'm kind of like, oh, Ish Smith, like he might actually play a role in this team now, really says all you need to know about where the Wizards are.
Matt, I feel like a lot of us just kept refreshing Twitter to see how many like future first rounders the Wizards were attaching to the deal, and we kept looking, and it turns out like there were absolutely 0. Like, I don't know, this was kind of a big WTF moment of the trade deadline.
Yeah, I guess what we have here is a lot of injuries that complicate the situation. So if Kristaps Porzingis was healthy, then it would be a crazy move for the Mavericks. Like, he actually has played really well this year, and he's a much better player than Spencer Dinwiddie. Davis Bertans has his own injury concerns. So if that were the case, then sure, this would have been a terrible move for Dallas. But Porzingis hasn't been playing for the last couple of weeks, and I think they're probably just fed up with how much time he's missed, how much time he spent away from game action. So with that in mind, I just don't really see this trade as that big of a deal because Dinwiddie, I think, is going to fill in for Jalen Brunson's previous role, where Brunson is now filling in for Tim Hardaway Jr.'s role. He's been out of the lineup too. So like this is not a fundamentally different Mavericks team. It basically just looks like how the Mavericks looked with Porzingis injured, and now he's just on a different roster. It doesn't really matter that much to me. And same for the Wizards. Like they were already kind of starting to tank. Once we got news Bradley Beal would be out for the season, I think the Wizards season kind of ended there. So if Porzingis doesn't play for them the rest of the year, I don't think it makes much of a difference. They're going to be in the lottery at this point, almost certainly. Really, like the only thing that seems to be a big deal here is just how well Luka Doncic is playing. And I'm not sure I care that much that Porzingis is gone. It's more that Luka is just playing extraordinary basketball now. He's starting to find a groove. Maybe there's some truth to the fact that he comes into the start of the regular season out of shape to some extent and needs half the year to get into it. But he just scored 50 points last night. So clearly he's playing well, whatever the reason is.
Dude, Dinwiddie was playing so poorly, his teammates reportedly wanted him traded. Like, you know, and that Bertans contract, a little bloated there. We'll end with this. Big 4-team deal. That went down early on Thursday. So Marvin Bagley to the Pistons, Rodney Hood and Semi Ojeleye to the Clippers, Serge Ibaka to the Bucks, kind of sneaky there, and Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Jackson to the Kings. A lot to unpack here in this one, but where's the biggest impact, Matt?
Well, I think the Bucks might already be regretting this move because Pat Connaughton got injured last night and they already just traded DiVincenzo, and suddenly a position where they had too much depth may have too little depth. They still have Wesley Matthews, they still have Grayson Allen, but after that, like their supplementary guards that they had so many of, and including Rodney Hood, who they got rid of also, George Hill has had some injury concerns. Like this team had a huge strength in the backcourt with so many extra guards around Holiday, Middleton, and Giannis. Now they don't have a ton. And Serge Ibaka, I mean, I think is okay at this point in his career, but I don't think he's going to play a big enough role where this is that helpful for them. I don't think he's really a needle mover at this point. He's probably playing 15 minutes a game off the bench at most. So yeah, the fact that Connaughton is now injured, like, I think the Bucks are going to have a little bit of a problem with DiVincenzo leaving too.
Garion, all of these moves here, is the biggest impact you think going to be felt on DFS, on the DFS side or the Sportsbook?
Yeah, I would say from a fantasy perspective, you've got a lot of just nothing in this trade. The only person I would really peg as someone who benefited greatly would be Dante DiVincenzo, just in the sense that the Kings clearly need guys to play minutes on the wing right now. I mean, we went into a situation with Sacramento in their last game, the first where they had that trio of Pacers guys playing for them, making their debuts. I mean, Justin Holiday played 34 minutes. Jeremy Lamb, who has been like a healthy scratch quite a bit for a terrible Pacers team so far this season, had to play 30 and a half minutes for the Kings in that contest. So I could see DiVincenzo stepping into, 28 to 32 minutes a game. He might even start ahead of Justin Holiday on this team. And, he's not having a great season this year, kind of coming off that lengthy injury. But, last season, 66 starts, 10.5 points, 6 rebounds, shot 38% from three. Like, he's a capable player. So if he's going to start playing more than 30 minutes a game, he's obviously the big winner of this trade from a fantasy perspective.